Hello there! Today we'll be looking at a German folding camera from the 1950s, the Zeiss Ikon Nettar. And I think this is the 518/16 model. I'm not entirely sure because the naming convention of Zeiss Ikon in those days were a bit strange, just a bunch of numbers. It's as if engineers were behind the marketing team even. But in any case, let's have a look at this camera and what it offers. If you watched my last camera drifting video, you saw that I found this camera and it also had some problems. Namely, this shutter selection dial was a bit stiff. Also, I noticed the aperture selection dial was also a bit stiff. And some shutter speeds were not really working properly. Let's say 25th and bulb were had a little bit of delay before they fully opened. So I fixed all of this, and now the shutter dial is quite nice and maybe even a bit too loose. But I noticed that if I tighten the lens more, I couldn't use the bulb mode, so it was like really a fine line of how tight it should be. The problem with this camera, as usual with old folders, is that the lubrication has become stiff. So things that are lubricated like this, anything moving basically, so the lubrication gets sticky over time and it becomes like glue. So the way to fix that is just go in and clear out the old lubrication and lubricate some parts again. But of course the key here is to use very little lubrication, because otherwise you might have the same problem, or you might have lubrication leaking onto the shutter blades or aperture blades, and yeah, that's not nice. Repairing this camera wasn't that difficult, I would say, but you need some tools for it and a lot of patience, especially if you open it far enough to get to the shutter blades, which I did, and which I did not intend to do, but it seems to be the best way to repair it anyway. The lens equipped on this camera is a Novar Anastigmat 75mm f4.5. And yeah, there are also a 6.3 lens on some of these cameras, so I think I was lucky to find the 4.5 one. The shutter equipped on this camera is the Vario shutter, and you have 4 shutter speeds. The fastest is 1/200th of a second, then you have 75th of a second, 25th of a second, and bulb. So not many options there, and the only ones you should use handheld is 75th and 200. Other ones you should have it on a tripod. Next to the shutter we have the aperture selection dial, and it goes from 4.5 to 22. Right over here we have a connection for a flash sync and a connection for a remote trigger, which is very useful if you're using bulb mode, otherwise you have to hold down the button. The shutter is tensioned with this lever here, and then it's connected to the shutter button here on top. And one thing to be aware of is that there is no double exposure prevention, so you can take how many exposures you want on the same frame. Some of these cameras have this mechanism built in that you cannot take the next picture before you have advance the film, but that's not the case with this one, so that's one good thing to be aware of. Focusing on this camera is not coupled to any rangefinder bell, because there is no rangefinder. It's just a basic framing window as a viewfinder. The focusing wheel is placed here on front, and you also have the markings for the depth of field at different apertures. Since there is no coupled rangefinder or even a rangefinder's camera, you have to be very slow and methodical when using this camera. Of course you can get a cold shoe attachment rangefinder, but I don't have that, and probably if you just picked up this camera you don't either. So to close the bellows you just press this downwards and push in the bellows, quite easy. So on the top of the camera we have of course the shutters button, the opening for the bellows, and the film advance knob. On the back we have the framing window, which of course doesn't have any light meter or rangefinder, and doesn't even have any framing lines, so I don't know. I mean, usually you should give a little bit margin when using this for framing your pictures and not have it exactly at the edge, because it might not actually cover that big area. And of course if you are closer to the subject there will be more parallax error, which means what you see here and what the lens sees don't line up. On the back we have a frame control window, and when I first got this camera it felt like it didn't close completely, but it's not supposed to close more than that, so there's nothing strange about it. Yeah. The camera is opened with this latch here. Just pull it down and pull the back open. And everything looks fine on this camera. The light seals surprisingly are not bad. To remove the spool, well, first of all I'll put this down because it's a bit difficult to do on camera, but it's just to lift up this here like that and pull out the film roll. Like that. And the same deal here on the other side. Pull it down, put in the film, and yeah. And there we and there we go. Right, so that was the overview of the camera. Now I'll go outside and take some photos, but I noticed I don't have any medium format film anymore. Checked my gigantic and legendary film vault and there was no medium format film, only a few rolls of 35mm, so I'll have to wait for that to arrive. But it shouldn't take too long, and yeah, when I've taken 1 or 2 rolls, I'll make one more video to show a bit how the photos look from this camera. But anyway, I think that's all for this video. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye!